Hey everyone, DuckNuck84 here, and you are in for a treat. I was able to get into the closed beta of World of Warships, and I'm going to give you my first impressions after fiddling around on the game for a couple of days over this weekend. So, if you've played any of the other Worlds of War games, you will notice that the hangar mode is pretty much the same. You have your hangar report mode, which allows you to select your ships and view them, your module mode, which is where all your upgrades are, as well as your ammunition consumables, which they haven't added those into the game yet. Of course, then your tech tree, which right now we only have the Japanese line, US line, and a premium Russian cruiser. And on the US side, destroyers and cruisers are your main ships, but the US does have the carrier tree so far. And on the Japanese side, same thing. We have cruisers and destroyers, but they have their battleships at the moment. So, has all four classes, although not every country has all four classes at the moment. So you have that, and then also you have your profile, which works just like the other ones, tells you your win-loss rates. I'm not doing too good at the moment, and I haven't survived many battles. But, like I said, I'm still kind of learning the ropes of the game. Also, a new thing that they've added, which I'm kind of on the fence about, I think it's a good idea, but maybe some refinement needs to be done, is as you play, you unlock different aspects of the game. So you start out at level 1, you can only play in co-op battles against bots, which is good for, learning how to play the game. But as you go, you unlock, the basic random battles, you give a credit bonus, you get your daily missions, and then free XP exchange. And then level 5, you finally get your ship commander, which is equivalent to World of Tanks crew. And then at level 6, you get upgrades, which are the same just like in World of Tank, where you get, the periscope, the camo net, and stuff like that. But here you unlock them at level 6. Before that, you're not allowed to equip any of the upgrades. So, why I'm on the fence is that although the commander and the upgrades don't give you a game-breaking advantage, they do give you a slight edge. So, someone who doesn't have those, of course, is going to be at a disadvantage against someone who does have a commander and a upgrade on their ship. I mean, it's the same in World of Tanks, so, that's why I'm kind of on the fence. But why I'm on the fence is that in World of Tanks, you have your crew at the start, whereas this one you don't get it until you've played a couple of games and unlock it. Now, you can do that in, 1 or 2 days, depending on how often you play, so it's not like you're out of, this slight advantage for a long period of time. But, like I said, on the fence, don't know how I feel 100% about it yet. Think it's a good idea, kind of, to give experience, but maybe have unlockables in the commander slightly earlier. Because, I could really care less if I have convertible XP, because I almost never do that, because I never waste my money on it if I do have any gold in the game. As for graphics, as you'll see also when we get into some of the battles, the game looks gorgeous, and I'm only running this on medium setting on a 5-year-old laptop, so while it is slightly graphic intensive, if you have a decent computer, you should have no problem with it. I haven't tried it at higher resolutions yet, just because I've been doing some recording, and in case there was a frame rate drop or anything like that. On medium, I think I did put the actual ship textures at high, but everything else is left at medium. I am able to get a pretty constant 60 frames per second and not a lot of lag, except when they were doing some stress testing on the server the other day. So that is the basic outline of the port. And of course, just to show you Captain here, another thing they added was that you don't have to wait till you train your captain up to 100% like in World of Tank. Here, every time he gets a level, he gets a skill point which you can spend on skills which give you a little bit of an advantage, like decreased firing time, repair time. And with the upgrades, each tier has a set number of upgrade slots, and they do stuff like, let's see here, like give you a negative % chance of catching fire or being damaged when you're hit, and give you a negative % chance for catching fire to your ship yourself. So with that, let's look at some of the ships I've unlocked and some of my notes on the gameplay so far. US Tier 1 Cruiser, Erie. Japanese Tier 1 Cruiser, Katori. US Tier 2 Destroyer, Samson. Japanese Tier 2 Cruiser, Chikuma. US Tier 2 Cruiser, Chester. Japanese Tier 3 Cruiser, Tetsuda. US Tier 3 Cruiser, St. Louis. Japanese Tier 3 Battleship, Kawachi. US Tier 3 Destroyer, Wix. US Tier 4 Carrier, Langley. First up, we have the destroyers, which are characterized by their high mobility and high speed. This allows them to zip across the map and set up attacks with their main devastating weapon, the torpedo. However, they are a bit of a glass cannon as they cannot take much damage. Destroyers also have another special ability, the smokescreen, which allows them for a limited time to lay down a thick blanket of smoke that obscures vision from the enemies and hides themselves. Now, you can use this not only to circle around and create another attack run, but also provide cover for your teammates who might be in trouble. Lastly, like all ships, the destroyers do have a main gun. Now, not as powerful as any of the other ships, they shouldn't be underestimated, as used in tandem with torpedo runs they can provide devastating effects and can also finish off wounded ships. However, if all else fails and you find yourself almost dead and an enemy nearby, you can ram them as a last resort. Now, with destroyers, you're more than likely going to kill yourself, but with a cruiser or a battleship, you might survive the collision to go on and continue fighting. But it's just another option you can take into consideration if you are down with no ammo or on fire or can't control your ship. Next up, we have the cruisers, which are the jack of all trades of the game, and in my opinion, the most important ship you can have in your fleet. Now, the cruiser's mission profile has it being a hunter of destroyers and other cruisers, as well as providing AA support for the carriers. As for why I think the cruisers are the most important ships in the fleet, well, when they're not trying to mate with each other, they do provide a crucial stopgap measure. They usually have multiple turrets on their main armaments and have a decent range, although still not as far as a battleship, and they also are able to have scout planes as well as torpedoes, which, if you find yourself in a fleet that has not too many destroyers or no scouting going on, you can task them into doing those jobs, as well as, like I said, hunting down destroyers and killing off other cruisers. Now, they can't stand toe-to-toe with the battleship, but keep the battleship distracted by firing at them while your main battleship is reloading. I have noticed some differences between the American and Japanese cruisers. For the Americans, it seems that they have slightly more damaging guns, as well as being a heavier armored ship, but they are a lot slower than some of the Japanese cruisers.
Enemy destroyer sunk.
For example, the Tier 3 US St. Louis can dish out a massive amount of firepower and take a bunch of hits. In fact, it's almost like a pocket battleship. However, just like the Chester, it trades its speed for armor, which makes it one of the slowest cruisers there is. It is also probably the first heavy cruiser that you get in the game, as the Tier 2 and Tier 3 Japanese cruisers, as well as the Tier 2 Chester for the US side, are more of a light cruiser and, have a slightly different playstyle. It's not uncommon to see St. Louis following around the battleships in the matches to act as fire support, whereas the Chesters might go with the destroyers instead. Now, while the US might get the first heavy cruiser, the Japanese cruisers are the first to get the torpedoes, with the Tier 3 Tetsuda. It is also here where you start to see some of the versatilities that cruisers can offer, because now you have a high damage weapon and you have a little more HP than the destroyers do. trade-off being is that you don't have as many torpedoes as the destroyers do, and yours usually take a little bit longer to reload. Another advantage the Japanese have are that their torpedoes can fire for a longer distance, usually about 7 km versus the US's 5.5 to 5 km. So with your light cruisers you can provide much needed support for the destroyers in your fleet. Next up we have the battleship. Now the battleship is pretty much what you'd expect it to be. Basically has long firing cannons, it has lots of HP, and it also has the ability to repair itself. So even if you do take some damage, you can get a little bit of your health back. Although it looks like you can only do that right after taking damage. You can't, just hang back and then if you've taken hits, 5 minutes later repair yourself. Only about maybe 1 or 2 minutes, it seems, after you've taken the damage can you do some repairs. But just because you have a large health bar doesn't mean you should be able to go off on your own. Actually, battleships seem to work best when they have supports. Like right here you can see that I'm being supported by a destroyer with a smoke screen, and that does seem to help out with me being able to hide behind the smoke cloud and not have the battleship I'm firing at take notice of me. Or else it could be that he was just more focused on the destroyer at the time. But also the other problem you have with battleships is that they have, at least the ones that I've played, have 0 AA support or very little if any. I think this one had 0 as well as the next one as well. But once you get up to the Congo class you do seem to have a little bit of AA support, but nowhere near as much as say a cruiser or a destroyer would have. So you do need support from the rest of your team to be able to watch out for the carrier's plane attacks, as you're pretty much a sitting duck. And the other problem is, again, you don't have much maneuverability, so while you can take your hits, you will not survive too long if you take too many of them. Because even with your high HP, the torpedoes eventually will do a number on you. If you get a full broadside of about 5 torpedoes, so it seems you could maybe survive 1 or 2 of those, if lucky, but that's, all depends on where they hit and how fast you can repair it, and if they do any other damage like fire or flooding, and if you have a repair ready to go. But, like I said, battleships are fun if you like playing the big heavy type. Right here you can see me taking on the Congo. And that's the other thing I liked, was that, even if you're playing a Tier 3, which is the first battleship, you can take on the higher level battleships. It's a little harder. It usually can outrange you, but it's not impossible, as you see here. Also, you'll notice that on this one the smaller guns are also firing. Now, every ship does have its secondary armament. Usually it ranges from the machine guns to smaller cannons. Those fire automatically, so you don't have to worry about aiming them, and they usually start firing, I think, it depends on the weapon. Like some of the machine guns for the AA only fire at less than a kilometer, whereas some of these smaller cannons, as you can see, go about 2 or 3 kilometers away. So they can help you off, and they're mainly there to stop destroyers from getting an easy attack on you, even though they seem to still be able to, because until you do some training on your captain, the aim is not that great on them, but they do help out. And as you can see, I'm still slugging off some damage from the Congo there. And for the most part, I'm being left alone by most of the other planes up in the air. So that's pretty much the battleships in a nutshell. Like I said, they have the highest armor in the game. They have a high alpha, but they also have a slow reload time of about half a minute. So you have to make sure you're aiming as well as you can, which can be hard at long ranges. But there he goes. They're basically your top dog when it comes to slugging it out with other ships. As besides for running into a torpedo, barrage, they can shrug off pretty much anything a single ship can dish out to it.
And finally, we have the carrier. Now, I'm going to say right off the top that I'm not that interested in the carrier. Not that I think, like some have said that they should be banned or that they should be nerfed. It's just that carriers as a ship never had been that interesting to me, so wasn't really that interested in playing them. But I did give them a try. So as you can see, if you're playing a carrier, you are going to see a lot of this view. And you do have the overhead map view available to you in the other ships as well, and it does have a nice feature that you can set up to 5 waypoints, so you can do some autopiloting while you try to shoot down your enemy ships, which I do like.
Autopilot mode disabled.
In addition, unlike the other ship where you can follow the trajectory of your shots, the carrier instead allows you to follow the path of the planes you've launched, and you can also in some ways manually target with them. Supposedly, I didn't really figure out how to do that. Otherwise, you can just have them selected on the map of what they want to attack, and they'll attack it normally and then head back to the carrier for a resupply. It's just a nice little touch to the game, so you don't always have to be just sitting at your carrier waiting for your planes to get back with an uninteresting view. As to the carrier themselves, they are, just like their real-life counterparts, sitting ducks without support. More than any other ship that you can play, you definitely need to have the rest of the team back you up, as otherwise you're going to be a dead carrier very fast. You have no armor. You only have, other than your planes, you only have secondary armaments, which, like I said, aren't the most accurate. First carrier has barely any, so it's supposedly improved once you get to the next one, but with the Langley, you just don't have really any protections other than your planes, and once they've been shot down, then you're pretty much done for the game, and your best bet is to try to hide, or at least hide behind some of your other teammates. If you're fighting a carrier, of course, other than torpedoes, which kill anything, your best bet is to use high explosive shells, as because their wood decks will just easily light on fire, and that'll help do a lot of damage to them and have the continuous damage that fire causes. But just also like, battleships aren't the most maneuverable, a little more maneuverable than battleships, but not by much. So make sure that, when you're playing, that you have a lot of situational awareness in what the rest of your team is doing. Otherwise, you are going to die fast. However, even if you do die, there is one thing that carriers have that I do like, is that if you have launched any planes that still have torpedoes or bombs or anything like that, when you die, they will stay in the air until they do at least one more attack run. So, you might be lucky and get an avenging shot in before they're either shot down, and then, or if they aren't shot down, they eventually just dive bomb and commit suicide and dive bomb into the ocean. But again, might be able to get a nice shot in from the grave. In an effective person's hand, which isn't me, like I said, since I'm not interested that much in the carriers. They can be pretty effective, as, I've seen people get shot down by manually controlled torpedo planes where, they launch it so close that it's almost impossible to evade. So, they can be very effective if in the right hands, just that's not me. I'm more interested in the battleships, cruisers, and destroyers.
So, my overall feel of the game is that it has a pretty solid foundation. I'm happy with most of the gameplay. My only real, criticism are there's some, minor cosmetic changes I'd like to see. Like, I'd like to be able to see, the players' names on the ship, so I know who I'm following, who to contact, and such like that. Maybe a little bit better on the viewfinder, because right now it's kind of hard to tell what, elevation you're at. That might be something they can add. Also, I would like to see maybe a little more complexity in some of the damage that you receive, because right now, if you get fire or flooding, it doesn't seem to do much other than to leech off, health from you. Yes, when you get flooding, it makes you go slower, stuff like that, but,
maybe add something like, as you start to flood, you list to one side, or, when you take a, your ship's on fire, maybe there's a percentage chance that it knocks out maybe your secondary armament or something like that. Add a little more variety and, a little more consequences to some of the damage that you receive. Other than that, I can't really say I have too many complaints with how it is now. Again, I'd like to see some more ships added in, which I'm sure they'll do, and like I said, some of the cosmetic fixes, again, because this is beta, I'm not too worried, and it's going to be something they'll probably add in later. But like I said, overall, I'm happy with it, and I hope it has a lot more going for it than World of Warplane did, and hopefully they listen to the community and the beta testers as well as the alpha testers on some of the changes they'd like to see implemented. And yeah, so this has been Worlds of Warships. If you can get into the beta, they are giving out codes every so often. I would definitely recommend at least you try it out if you are interested in naval combat games. I've been DuckDuck84. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, favorite, or a comment down below, and I will see you next time. Until then.